Morning. Well, we just got back from a weekend away and it's just been Easter, so we've eaten a whole lot of chocolate. But anyways, we've come back home and I realized that we left this place in such a mess. I need to tidy up. I've got a whole bunch of washing to unpack, dishes to tidy up and stuff to do around here. So why don't we just do that while I tell you a little bit about a few things that have been on my mind. Watch me do some tidying up. Wow, that sounds boring. Completely agree if you want to switch off now. But I'm going to give you some good information along the way, so maybe that's the reason you stick around. I actually really wanted to talk about work-life balance though, so let's go into a massive deep dive about work-life balance and how it affects your life as a medical student and a junior doctor. Let's get to it. So I guess like a lot of people wonder about medicine and your ability to, do work-life balance or have a work-life balance in medicine. First of all, is it possible? And then, like, how do you manage it as well? Man, my stomach's making some weird sounds. I need to get a coffee or some food ASAP. But I guess from the outset, I think definitely yes. Like it is possible. I'm giving up on this shoelace. It can just sit over there. So it is possible, 110%. Is it easy and straightforward? No. But like most things in life, they're not going to be that easy and straightforward. So you have to like figure it out and make it work for you. And I think that's like most things in life. So it's not like medicine exclusive, And like, I think one of the main things to understand is that it definitely gets, more tricky the longer you go through and the further you get into your training, because I don't know, by its nature, when you start out, like you're not doing that much stuff really, and then you don't have that much responsibility, you don't have that much time commitment, and then you can actually go deeper into your training and you have to do more stuff, you have to spend longer hours at work, you have to essentially just commit more to the role. And that's fine, like it's not a bad thing, but it's just something to bear in mind. I think a lot of people get deterred because you see like all this stuff on TV of like doctors just like working relentlessly and there literally being no reprieve, and it's not completely like that. I think sure, maybe if you had to compare and contrast some specialties to medicine is pretty like time consuming, but I know people in a whole bunch of different fields that aren't even related to medicine who can spend their whole life working and not be like, not feel like they have a good work-life balance. They feel like they're so tied to that role. Like there's people who own small businesses who are like that. There's people in the finance sector who are like that. People who are in marketing who are like that. I mean, it's really not medicine exclusive to feel like you essentially have a whole lot of work and not a whole lot of life balance. So yeah, I think like just making medicine that field that you can't have a work-life balance is, I don't know, not quite right. I think it definitely happens in other fields as well. It's completely fine. Like, not to say that one way is better than the other, but you should slowly over the course of the years figure out how you have the best workflow and how you optimize that the best, and because that will actually fit into your career choices as a doctor. If you are listening to this and you're doing medicine or you're a med student, or maybe you've just started working as a doctor, and it's not completely impossible to achieve your ultimate work-life balance. Because I think that's the thing at the end of the day. Like, you won't have the same work-life balance as someone else because you don't care as much about some things as someone else. You might just want to work 5 days a week and that's fine. Like, that's enough time off for you, potentially. Some people might not want to work more than 3 days a week, and that's completely fine as well. But I guess what's the right balance for you in the long run? And that can actually decide what direction you take in medicine, because some fields may require certain things of you. And I guess from the absolute core of it, you don't want to, well, I don't really want to go to work feeling like it's work at the end of the day. I know it's work and I know that I have a job to do, but if I could do something that I really want and I'm really good at for the rest of my life, and have some stuff outside of that to fulfill my, ever growing and changing interests, then that seems like almost too good to be true. But I guess it is very possible to have something like that. And I don't feel like medicine is inhibitory to that goal or to that mindset. So in order to get there, you have to think long and hard about what sort of thing in medicine could help you achieve that. Not saying there's not that same commitment in other fields, but I'm just saying from my experience, my brief experience in surgery, that's sort of like the vibe I'm getting, is that it's like going to be a lot of work and a lot of hours and time spent to doing and getting really good at that specialty. Now, am I okay with that? Yeah, 100%. At least I think so right now. I mean, I might not have the same answer in 2, 3, 4 years, but right now I think I'm very comfortable dedicating that time and wanting to do that. Wanting to allocate my time to that goal, to get good, to get onto training program, and to essentially, learn it. And that's fine. In the long run, would I want to spend as much time doing this sort of thing as I am now, or what I will be doing in the next 5 to 7 years? I don't think so. But how would that look instead? Like, is that possible for me to not do that and still work in that field? 100%. There are people who, like, depending on what surgical field you're in, do not have to do excessive hours, and essentially, if they have a well-established, potentially a private practice, or just a limited number of public placements, maybe they are, able to supplement their income with other things that provide them with fulfillment, that are also able to, financially support them. So potentially like teaching, potentially taking on a more managerial type role, or a supportive or administrative based role that, you're not actually doing as much clinical placement. I think that's also possible. And if you feel burnt out by clinical work in medicine, then maybe that's more your go-to. If you really like a certain field, like surgery, but you can't do lists and operations in clinics 5 days a week, potentially 6 days a week, then you need to think, well, do I really like this specialty? And if I really like it still, is there another way I can make this a part of my life without exhausting me to an extent where I get burnt out and I have to take an extended time off? Because like that's the thing, like, I don't really want to take time off in the sense that I need it to decompress and have a holiday. So then when I come back, I'm doing the same thing and I just have to, put up with it for a bit, and then I have to have another holiday to, take some more time off. Like, I would rather take breaks during and, adopt essentially a workflow that is sustainable, so that I don't feel like I'm ever burning out, or I don't feel like I'm ever, not able to maintain that flow. I think getting to a state where you're able to just enjoy the process of workflow without feeling like you're burnt out and stressed and overworked, that's an ultimate place to be in. I don't know if it's possible, but I feel like ideally I'd want to be in that place, rather than working 110%, taking a break, working 110%, taking a break, because I feel that leads itself to burnout, rather than just maintaining a steady flow that incorporates all aspects of your life, so that it becomes part of your life, Anyways, I think that's the way I think about it. Like, when people are like, oh, I really need a holiday, like, I don't know, I feel like that rarely. If I'm pushing myself too hard, sure, then I feel like that. But by and large, I don't, because you slowly increment your workflow so that it becomes a sustainable workflow for you. I guess getting back to it, like, what would I want from, like how would I be thinking about this if I was like a med student, and if I essentially was wondering, is this still the right thing for me? Because I know a lot of people, especially me, have wondered that. Like, am I putting too many eggs in this basket, and is it actually going to work out, or am I better off spending my time doing something else that's not medicine so that I can do other stuff? Well, I think look at the consultant life, because that's like the main thing, the main deciding factor in terms of whether you see yourself doing it as a career. Because you spend most of your time as a consultant in medicine, if you have a full career there. And if you can look at the consultant life, the consultant work-life balance, and say, this is something I could do, or this is something I definitely couldn't do, then that's a good deciding factor. So that's what I would focus on if I were a med student now. And like, one of the best ways to do this is, talking to consultants, talking to registrars as well about, what their opinion is of the field, because obviously registrars are training in that area because they want to do that, at least. And it's a bit like, they have thought about what it looks like and have decided that that is a career for them. And as long as they get through the training, then they can accomplish it and eventually end up working like a consultant. I think, like, most people look at a registrar's role and may actually think that that's what it is, what it's like, and they might make a decision based off that registrar role, which I don't think is completely fair. Because, I think the registrar role is skewed. It's not the consultant job. And I think most registrars are super, super busy, super overworked. It is a really stressful time being a registrar. I don't know, from what I've seen. And it's really difficult to obtain work-life balance in that part of your training. And I think a lot of people see it like they have 4 to 5 years of being a registrar or fellow until they get to a consultant, and then they start to get back their life, some people will take time off before starting their training as an accredited registrar, and have a kid, and then once they've had their kid, they're like, all right, let's get back into it and let's smash it. And then they grind for like 4 to 5 years being a registrar, and then at the end of it, they're like, okay, now I can like start to like enjoy my stuff again. Not saying that you can't enjoy stuff along the way and have little wins and everything like that, but by and large, it is very much a grind. So having your system set up before you enter that phase is super important. And I think, I don't know, from what I've seen myself, from what I've seen and from what I've spoken to people about, I think that's sort of the vibe that I get. And I mean, that's what I hear from them anyway. So a lot of dedication, a lot of, work imbalance, I think, with your life at that period of time. But I guess, people adjust. Like, there are some people in that period of their life where they have really like a lot of people helping them out. I think there's like, it's not impossible to have kids during that time. And if you want to do certain things, like people get married, people have kids, people, move house, people, have all these big life events, you shouldn't put those on hold to do training. Having said that, bear in mind that it is tricky regardless of whether you have these big life events or not. I think the difficult thing to conceptualize is that, and I guess it gets back to your nature and your ability to cope and adapt and, deal with things, although taking that mindset can be a bit victimizing, because you put the onus on the person undergoing those things and not the system that's designing those things. So having the ability to sympathize with the person going through that, and making it like not like tough and grueling and like, completely like unsustainable to the extent that you just burn these people out and you like wear them down. Like, I don't think that should be the aim of training. At least, whatever I think about it, like, you shouldn't want to do that to people. You need, of course, pressure, and you need to be able to cope with stress and like actually learn the stuff and get good at it. And I guess, like, to an extent, you need some adversity to overcome. But I guess it gets back to that whole traditional like mindset in medicine where, oh, I went through like all this hardship and hard times, so you have to go through it too. And I think we've moved on from that. Maybe there's some people who sort of still adopt that mindset, but I guess having a side on both ends, having a foot on both sides, I think is important. Realizing that you need to adapt and deal with stuff and, really like be able to overcome things is important, in any profession. But also having the ability to like not put your life on hold and not make it completely incompatible with having like a normal everyday life is important, I think. I don't think you want to put people off from doing that specialty or from doing medicine because you think, oh, well, I have no time for A, B, and C, or I have no time to have kids. I have no time to go for running, go for running. Like, I have no time to do exercise or explore other interests in my life. Like, medicine is an all-encompassing field, and you can spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week doing it and still not scratch the surface. I think that's what a lot of people like about it, but having the ability to disconnect and disassociate with the field and literally force yourself to do other stuff and make time for those things and people is incredibly important. So yeah, it's an interesting perspective, but I think the conclusion is that it shouldn't be, and hopefully it gets better and better and better over time, is less arduous and less time consuming and demanding and everything like that. And people will be able to have like normal everyday lives that other people have. But yeah, I don't know if everyone wants that to an extent. Like, I think a lot of people in medicine are those type A personalities who are like hyper obsessed, hyper focused, and actually enjoy dedicating a whole lot of time to a certain field, and they're very competitive and very high achieving and, you know, determined people you know, who like doing that sort of stuff. And I guess to an extent I like that. I mean, I don't know if there are people in medicine who would not fit that model, but there probably are. You know, there's probably like a whole variety of people in medicine. Not there probably is. There definitely is a whole variety of people in medicine. So yeah. Coming back to it, I think though, the concept of work-life balance is personal, and you can have as much balance as what you see as balance and what you define as balance. And that's an important concept to understand, because everyone will have a different version of what they see as being balanced, and you shouldn't be forced to fit into someone else's model of that, if you know what I mean. Having a good idea of what you want to, you know, eventually attain. Yeah. I guess obtain, you're actually getting an object. So there you go. Maybe that's the difference between obtain and attain, is that attain is like an actual thing, a concept, whereas like you attain a level of expertise, or you attain a authority, like an authoritative perspective or something. I don't know. But obtain is like, oh, I obtained a car, or I obtained a new kettle or something. Obviously I wouldn't get a new kettle. This kettle is phenomenal. But yeah, I think having a really good understanding of what you want to get out of medicine and eventually do. Like, I think having that clarity and that thought is so important, because otherwise you're just doing what other people want to do. Like, at the end of the day, you got to like live your life and think, like really think, am I happy dedicating time to do this thing, or do I not want to do that? And if you keep asking yourself like all these different questions and wanting validation from people, like obviously there are doubts, no question about it. People will have doubts and need guidance and mentorship. That's different. But if you're like, even despite all that guidance and mentorship, still thinking to yourself, or still having that feeling of like, I don't know if this is right for me, then, you know, if you sometimes think that, maybe it's the truth. Maybe it is not right for you. And I don't mean to say that in a negative way or like put you off in any way, shape or form. Literally just playing devil's advocate and saying, well, it's not completely impossible for you to actually not fit with the profession and maybe be better off doing something else. And if that's a thought that brings you relief, then maybe that might be the best thing for you. If that's a thought that makes you a bit uncomfortable and you're like, well, no, I definitely don't want to give that away, then that's also good, because maybe it brings you clarity and says to you, well, that means I definitely still want to do this. It's just finding what aspect and what part of medicine would fit in with my everyday life and my nature. So that's really good. Oh, I hate when this happens. Nice. So let's just, I guess, think about not think about me, but like, like I can give you some perspective of how I view it all, and like what I've thought about and stuff like that. And I think from the outset, I was like always like not completely sure, still am to an extent, figuring out how I want medicine to fit into my everyday life. And I guess this, in a way, is some form of figuring that out, because I definitely don't have everything figured out, because it is, like, as I said, an all-encompassing field before, and you can spend a whole lot of time learning and growing and developing and still not have like an understanding that makes you an expert. Like, you need years and years and years and years. And like, I keep bringing back to this video, like the video I did about that 93-year-old cardiologist. Like, that is actual proof that you can work in medicine for so long and still keep getting fulfilled, or still keep learning and developing, because like, yeah, so much, so much you can do. Should we go intensive, I feel like? Or no, let's just go daily. That's good. But the good thing is, like, you don't have to have it all figured out. And I don't know, like, I think a lot of people like get to this stage and think, I don't know. And like, don't worry, like, I don't know is great. I don't know is kind of the best thing sometimes. And you start off at the start of med school by just saying it so often, and because you're just learning stuff, which is completely fine. And then by the end of med school, you essentially don't say it as much, because you feel like you know stuff from a med school perspective, which is true. You do know stuff from a med school perspective, but that is such a fractionated portion of what actual medical knowledge is in the real world. And then when you start internship, it goes back up and you start second guessing everything you do. Eventually, as you keep working as a resident, and then in Australia we have registrars as well, so that eventually decreases over time until you're a fellow. And like, when you're a fellow, you start like really, like, you know, like essentially you don't really say it as often, if at all, because you're getting to at the end of training, you finish training, you've specialized in a specific area, and now you can actually be really comfortable with stuff without the responsibility. Then when you transition from fellow into a consultant or an attending, then you don't say it as often to start with, because you're like, well, I'm this field now and I have to feel like confident and I have to show my confidence. But then you start going up and up and up and up and up, and then it gets to a point where you're saying, I don't know, for as many things as you did at the start. And I actually really like that graph, because it essentially shows how you can be smart and intelligent and essentially invested in stuff without having a 100% certified answer or direction in what to do. And having the ability to sit with different options comfortably, know the pros and cons of different options, be comfortable if someone chooses a different option to what you want to offer them, and that might be a patient, or that might be a different specialist or a different healthcare professional. Realize the pros and cons of each side, and essentially you get to this stage where everything is a bit, I don't know, but and some are better than others, and from your perspective, and others may say something slightly different. And I think that really brings like a balancing effect to this whole thing, where, or when you're grappling with this question of what do I do for a career and specialty and specialization, you feel like you constantly have to have a more refined and more, more clear answer, a clearer answer, if you will. And at the end of the day, realizing that you can eventually just make it up as you go. and it will work itself out. And you can essentially, if you focus on principles, then the answers will come to you. And I think that's a good thing. Like, the whole reason like why I chose medicine at the start was I wanted to be like mentally stimulated. I didn't want to be bored. I wanted problem solving. I wanted, you know, constant activity and buzz and like, you know, energy and all these things. And I just did subjects that I liked and did subjects that I was good at school. And then it eventually led to this path. And I'll go through in a different video where I break down my entire path from when I first started to think about medicine as a career to where I am now, and my journey throughout. And maybe that'll be useful as well for you. But yeah, I think the concept of work-life balance it's an interesting one. And at the end of the day, I think you do have to work a lot in order to get life balance, no matter what field you're in. No matter what field you're in, medicine is not mutually exclusive to the other fields that you can obtain work-life balance, and you can work as hard as you want in real estate or finance or, I don't know, carpentry or some like other random field. Like I saw this like video the other day of like people doing medical coding. Cool. Like you could work thousands and thousands of hours in medical coding and get to the top of your game, and then you can have work-life balance, or you could not. You know, it's really up to you. And finding how that fits in with your life is the best question you should be asking. Not, can I have work-life balance? You can have work-life balance in whatever field you want. It's making it work for you and your life and having that balance. So yeah, anyways, that's just been bottling around in my head. Hopefully that helps. We're gonna finish off the rest of this housework, and yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Bye.